What's going on, everybody? Greg here, and I wanted to introduce you to one of our clients, Chris. He just recently finished our foundations program and actually joined our academy program as well. And he seemed to have a lot of success in the program, so I wanted to kind of pick his brain to share his experience with you in case you're considering the program and or looking for more information. So, Chris, thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Yeah, happy to.
So, before we kind of jump into your story pre-joining the program and kind of your experience inside the program, can you quickly kind of let everyone kind of understand who do you serve, what do you sell, like what is your business name, what have you been doing up until this point?
Yeah, for sure. I run a company called the Sponsorship Collective. And up until this point, we're doing a lot of one-to-one consulting in the sponsorship space, which is it's a marketing discipline, but definitely not your traditional marketing agency, I would say. So we focused on sales coaching, valuations, really helping organizations figure out what they have to sell and take to market. And so I'd attempted a couple times to sort of productize my service in the past, and it was an epic fail on multiple occasions. And that's when you found me, or that's when I found you, I think.
Can you explain that? So we get a lot of people that, they don't quite grasp what it means to productize, or like in your situation, you said to me numerous times, like, well, I've already tried this and it didn't work. Like, what did that mean to you at that time?
Yeah, so I probably, like lots of people, I read the E-Myth and Built to Sell. It's on my bookshelf. I can see it from here, and both outstanding books. But I really struggled to implement the teachings there. So for me, kind of phase one of productizing was trying to move from a responding to RFP consulting style practice to having a standardized offering that I would sell in a way off the shelf. It was still one-to-one. It appeared custom, but it was very much this is a package of what we do. And it allowed me to move away from charging by the hour to charging by the outcome. And so that was a big success for me and for my business. And we saw a significant increase in profitability, but it left the problem that none of my clients wanted to work with anyone but me. So I couldn't hire an account manager. I couldn't hire another sponsorship pro. Like, I was locked into delivering everything.
And why was
one-to-one.
Why was that? Was that your own mindset, or like how things were structured? Like, what led you to believe that it had to be you?
Yeah, well, so I had on a number of occasions hired other people who were sponsorship experts, and I think that, so, I have no doubt that almost everything comes down to mindset, but I think mindset and environment play off of each other. So there was lots of resistance from my clients to work with anyone but me. They felt like they're being handed off to somebody else. And so it kind of created this model where I could only hire people who had the experience that I had, who were as good as me, who could just take a client and run with them, who also didn't want to do it on their own and hang their own shingle, which I really started to realize quickly. That's a hard find. So I started to break what I do down into its components. So valuation, creating experiential marketing opportunities, training staff. I tried to break that down and then hire people who had expertise in each of those areas, and then sort of manage the process. And I found my clients really resistant to working with anyone who wasn't me, no matter who it was. It was just a huge pain. And so I ended up hiring, I had like five full-time staff. And I went from working kind of 60 to 70 hours a week to working 100 plus hours a week, trying to scale up with the crappy agency model, as I like to get the official industry term, the crappy agency model. And so then I tried a bunch of things. I ended up just cutting my price point, offering the same service, thinking that maybe people wouldn't care if they worked with me if I wasn't charging so much. And also that did not produce the desired result. And so it kept me locked into being client facing all the time.
And you have built a pretty successful business prior to coming to us.
Yeah.
from the amount of hours you were putting in, like, I guess from the outside, a lot of people probably thought it looked great. I mean, like, talk to me a little bit about like what was actually happening behind the scenes. I mean, obviously you're working 100 plus hours a week. Like with these
Yeah.
experts, was it that profitable, or what did it
Yeah.
look
So
like?
when I scaled up and hired staff in that kind of older model, the revenue, my annual revenue was unchanged. So my hours went up, my profit went way down, and I still paid myself a very comfortable salary throughout all of this, but I hated the work that I was doing. I mean,
Mhm.
really hated it. And so profitability tanked, but I just wasn't happy. I mean, no one starts, well, maybe that's an overstatement, but I don't know many people who start a business just because they want to create a job for themselves forevermore.
Right.
Like many people are starting a business because they have a vision for a business. And then you get kind of, maybe you're okay with the freelancing model at first, but we have this drive to do more. And so it just felt like a glorified job that paid better than any job I'd ever had, but I hated it. And the decision, the intersection, the crossroads happened when my
Mhm.
wife came to me and said, I need like a 3-year plan here. It's cool if you want to work, 7 days a week, you want to work on vacations. I get it. Like that's who I married. That's your approach, but you're going to be dead at 50. We have no retirement plans. I have a widow plan is basically what my wife said to me. We
Jeez.
don't have kids, but I couldn't imagine how, I don't know how anyone with kids could work these hours, but I know they do. So she said, I'm not asking you to make a change. This isn't an ultimatum, but you have to at least have an exit strategy. And the next day I went and I packaged my entire team and knew that I was never going to get there with that approach.
Mm.
And so and so and so then I went right back to kind of square one, which is me with a couple of VAs and outsourcing a couple of things and just being a glorified freelancer. And I did that for a couple, maybe 2 years, because my income stayed exactly the same.
Mm.
So it was highly profitable, but still unsatisfying, kind of on that
And
journey to building a business.
so ultimately, kind of from a like logistics, what exactly was it that you were selling, and like was it pretty much just delivered one on one through calls? Was there in person?
Yeah. So the kind of the core function that we serve, that the sponsorship collective serves, is that of valuation. And so in the sponsorship space, in the sponsorship world, for brands and what we call properties or sponsorship seekers, for them to come together, they are inherently mistrusting, untrusting of each
Mm.
other. So when Stadium A says it's worth $1 million a year, trust me, and Bank of America or CIBC says, well, we're going to need you to prove that it is actually worth that, they have to
Mm.
engage a third-party valuation firm like mine. So
Right.
I was on site. I took 1 year, 42 flights in a year, which is like almost, well, it's a flight every week,
Mm.
basically,
Yeah. Yeah.
except for holidays. And so the points were awesome, but yeah, I was on a flight a week, basically, always delivered on
Mm.
site. And the valuation process is really technical. So once you're done the valuation, you have to train the team, give them the tools, and send them on their way. So I was doing like 2 or 3 site visits minimum in person with my clients across North America, and then doing the speaking circuit. So I was probably speaking at like probably about a dozen conferences, and then we run our own conference. So I was traveling a ton,
Mm.
and as one would predict, I put on like 50 pounds in a year, and I started to see the cracks forming in that model as well as a natural cap in even just the genius with 1,000 helpers approach to business.
So this kind of brings us to when like we started chatting, because we started chatting, or at least maybe this went on for a while before we started chatting, but you were interesting in that we spoke a couple times. It, to me, I was like, we can 100% help. You were very, very, very resistant, um, understandably so. Uh, and we went back and forth, I don't know, for a little while. So like,
Yeah.
from my perspective, and kind of as you alluded, you had felt like you had already tried to productize, didn't work. it seems like you were, wherever you were receiving information from and input and guidance from, like you had tried a bunch of different things that kind of led you to, like, I guess finally coming to us. Can you talk
Yeah.
through like a little bit about kind of what was going on in your head? Because, you know, I know from my side, the narrative was, well, I've already tried this. So like, how is this going to be different? But you had
Yeah.
tried a lot of things also. Like, I mean, from
Yeah.
the high paid subject matter experts, you have courses, you have a conference, like you've kind of done a lot of different delivery styles.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that's something worth mentioning as well, that I was selling like 150,000 bucks a year just in online courses, and
Mm.
to kind of round out my revenue. So when I found you and the alt agency team, I think I had healed from or I had almost healed and recovered from my attempt to scale.
Mm.
I realize in retrospect, now having gone through the program, it's really challenged a lot of my assumptions. It's pushed me quite a bit, actually, and I realized I wasn't fully healed, but I thought I was recovered when I came to you. And the problem that I was having was I had all of these options. Do I do like mass courses, selling them for low ticket, and then moving people through like the traditional digital marketing, like front end offer,
Ascension, yeah.
tripwire front end? Yeah, exactly. Or do I do the old school, what I'm calling the old school agency model? Like I felt like I had no idea what path I actually wanted to go down.
Mm.
But the pain was significant. I knew I didn't want what I had, but I didn't know what way I wanted to go. And so when I met you and we had our first conversation, I don't think I was actually primed to even hear your message. It was just like, yeah, you should go down this path and I can help you. And I think even the idea that there was a solution, like it scared me almost,
Mm.
like now I have to do it. And if I don't do it, if I do it and it doesn't work, then I guess I don't have a functioning business model. And so the stakes in my mind were really high.
Mm. It's really
And so
interesting.
I was looking at, like, do I just give up on consulting completely? Do I start a new business that has nothing to do with sponsorship? Like, is my niche is my audience just not monetizable? Like, I was having like an existential crisis almost in my business, all the while doing well financially, but really hating significant parts of my business model. And so I didn't know if I should be, part of our valuation includes a SaaS or a software product. Like, should I just be selling SaaS products? Should I
Mm.
be, I felt like I just had so many options ahead of me, in front of me. And I didn't know which one to choose. And so I was really struggling to decide what path to go down. So you and I had our call, and then I think I followed up with an email and asked you a ton of questions. And then I
Mm.
bailed on a call where you and I were supposed to meet. And I was like, I'm not ready. I can't have this conversation. And this whiteboard right here that kind of hangs out
Yeah.
behind my desk, I actually, I booked like 2 or 3 hours in my calendar, and I just refused to leave my whiteboard until I cracked this nut and decided on a path. And then once I decided on that path, I was like, okay, I'm not looking back. And the path I decided was that the solution you were offering in the program was, in fact, what I had to do.
What happened on that whiteboard? Because I think probably what happened on that, some people watching might maybe need to do a similar experiment.
Yeah. So what I started to do was think about I started with to borrow from Stephen Covey, I guess. I started with the end in mind. Like,
Mm.
what is the life that I'm actually trying to create here?
Mm.
If profitability hasn't really been a significant challenge for me, with some exceptions, yet I'm unhappy, then what's the thing that's making me unhappy? What do I want to have? And what I want to have is a scalable business, not a really well-paying job. I want a business that I can be the CEO of. And so I wrote down the business models that I thought would lead to that likely outcome, all within the sponsorship space.
Mm.
And then I started to think about what kind of activities that I truly love doing, right? And so as I went through the CEO of a software company. Do I have the skill set for that? Do I have the appetite for that? Is that really playing to my strengths? And it left me with two options. And then I think, as many of us do, we take it back to our partners or those people who are important in our life. But I had a conversation with Jasmine, my wife, and we simply talked about what our goals were and what we wanted life to look like. And it led me right to the idea that, yes, indeed, I have to productize my service, but I didn't want to let go of the coaching. I didn't want to let go of certain pieces where I am interacting with my clients. And so it pointed me to the qualities of a business that I knew I wanted, that I knew played to my strengths, and that would push me through the tough spots when I'm being challenged. And so, if I think back, I basically finished that exercise, and I sent you a note because we rescheduled that call. And I said, I don't actually need a call. Just send me the link. I'm ready to sign up.
Yeah.
and so like, once I made up my mind, I knew it was the right move. But for me, I really had to think about what it is that I wanted. And part of that fire was lit because you pushed me on that call. Right? You're like, I can help you. You have to decide what you want. So
you
want. And I didn't know what to say to that.
I could do this. You're like, I could do this. I could do that. I'm like, yeah, you could do both of them. Like, which one do you want to focus on?
Yeah. And I'm like, well, does your program lead to this result or that result? And you're like, it leads to the result you want. This is about the process of getting what you want. And I think until then, I was using the excuse that there isn't a solution out there for me. And when you asked me what I want, I was looking in the mirror, realizing I don't actually know what I want. That's my problem. And so until I sort through that, I knew that I wasn't going to move forward. But I equally didn't want to use it as an excuse. Like, until I find out what I want, then I don't have to make a move. I was like, no, I'm going to know what I want within 48 hours. And a practice that I've used and actually recommended to many in the community is start with the most likely solution. So I started with the assumption, I'm going to take Greg's program. I'm going to join Alt Agency. And then if in 2 hours I can't prove myself wrong, then I just have to move forward with that decision. And so that's helped keep me in motion. I start with a conclusion, and then if I can't prove myself wrong, it must have been right.
Yeah. So a couple of things before we move on. You mentioned it, like, kind of in that in the kind of soul searching, whiteboarding of like figuring out what you want, and you came up with, like, I want a scalable business. Like, I want to be the CEO. Like, what does that mean to you? Because I know that, like, a lot of people say scale. And I think a lot of people are using the word enough now that, like, it almost in some ways maybe has lost its meaning, or some people don't know what it actually means. So, like, when you were like, I want something that is scalable, what do you see?
Yeah. So for me, it's about being able to take on the number of clients that I want to take on, not that I can take on. So first of all, I want to have a business that can grow and not break by client acquisition. That's one. Two, selfishly, I don't want to do any of the tasks that I don't like doing. That's basically so I want to be able to hire a team and to farm out tasks that they're good at, that they love, that I despise. And the third piece is, as I think about the silos in my business, marketing, sales, fulfillment, thought leadership, content marketing, all of these different elements, what I want to be doing is setting the vision for my business, setting the vision for these areas, and then coaching and leading people to achieve those goals while they grow, while they achieve their goals. And so what I get the most interest out of, what I'm most passionate for, at least at this stage, is coaching people to achieve their goals, their outcomes within my business.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, watching one of my consultants, a junior consultant way back, stand up in front of a really tough client and talk about my philosophy, not as my philosophy, but as the Sponsorship Collective's philosophy, and teach it to someone. It was amazing to see people adopting my ideas, transferring that knowledge, and then triggering growth in someone else. So I want to do more of that stuff, and setting the vision, measuring the KPIs and coaching my team to achieve those things. That's what I envision myself doing.
Love it.
And that's at least what I mean when I say scale and have a business.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would agree with you on a lot of those things. So awesome. So flash forward, you like you said, you chose to enroll and you got started. You are someone who has implemented very, very quickly. So, not to discredit anything you've done, because everything you've done so far is 100% because of how much you've applied and how quickly you've moved. Within the first 31 days, you pre-sold your new kind of group program.
Yeah.
Am I correct? Like around 30 grand in revenue?
I knowing we were going to have this conversation, I just kind of wrote around 42,000 now, but within 30 days I had 30 grand, 31
Cool.
grand or something.
And so talk to me, like you hopped in, like for other people that are listening that are like, well, what happens when I first jump in? Can you kind of talk through like, what were those actions that you started taking that allowed you to kind of get clear on even whatever it is that you did to be able to achieve the results you did in 30 days?
So in some ways, it's hard to call this good fortune, but in some ways I had the good fortune that I joined after the lockdowns had started. I'm in Canada, certainly had started in Canada, and my clientele is in Canada and the United States, so it's affected my industry across the board. But I was supposed to have our big industry conference, like 400 plus people in end of April. And so that obviously did not happen. And so I had the quote gift of like 2 weeks once we rescheduled the conference. I had 2 weeks in my calendar that I had been holding for this event, and then I couldn't trade it in for a cool vacation because no one could go anywhere. So I took that time and I really I doubled down and focused on just plowing through the content. And the first exercise that I thought was really helpful, and I can tell by the commentary in the community that many others do as well, it's the perfect week, designing your week. And so I knew that I would, and so the idea is that you set your week up so that, you're blocking your time and you're sort of in control of your week, and you plan it out ahead of time. So I went through that exercise, and I just put in as much time as I could to do the alt agency work early on. I was in momentum and I wanted to just kind of keep plowing through. And then I employed the decision-making strategy that I shared. I was like, do I use Member Vault or Thinkific or whatever? And I was like, okay, I said Member Vault first, so I'm going to write that down. And I give myself 15 minutes to talk myself out of it. I couldn't, so I just moved forward I basically just moved. I didn't spend time sort of pondering and thinking about any of the steps. And, I noticed some people would reach out and be like, hey, are you going to do this for your email marketing or that? I'm like, I'm going to do whatever alt agency says. Like, I'm literally going to copy and paste the template. And when Greg says, don't copy this, like, this is not a good one to copy. Don't lie to people. Like, tell your own story. I'll tell my own story. But unless it says that, I'm just sending the same thing. So I used exactly your automations that you gave us, and the emails. And when you said, do this post on this date, I just did. I didn't question anything, which is really not my nature. But
what if it's not your nature, how'd you get to the place where that you did that? Because I mean, like, if I could impart any skill on someone, like going through a program like ours, and even to myself when going through programs, like, that's it. Like, so how did that change in you?
Well, look, I think after 6 years of trying to invent and reinvent my business, and I scaled up twice and did all this stuff, I've proven what my approach gets. It gets me where I was. And so, as a former consultant now, because I don't do any one-to-one as a result of going through this program anymore, I used to say to people, what is the point of hiring an expert and then not listening to them and telling them what to do? It's stupid, or at least it's illogical. Maybe it's not stupid. It just makes no sense. So anyway, I thought, look, I'm investing in this program. I want it to work. And I've come to them for a reason. So I just turned off that part of my brain that was like that. I turned off that doubting part of my brain and instead focused on just doing the work, putting in the reps, and having faith in the process. And any time I deviated from that strategy, those seeds of doubt were being watered. And I would come to the group and be like, "Oh, this thing is such a challenge for me. What happened?" And as I look back, I realize it's because I deviated from the plan.
Mm.
So yeah, I was like, I'm just going to do what it says. And if I crash and burn as a result, then so be it. Like, that was a level of dedication that I kind of came into the program with. And
so I love that. So for the logistical heads that are going to be listening to this, you were doing a lot of things one-on-one. You came in within 30 days. You followed the game plan, and which, by the way, for anyone listening, the game plan is to design this new offering that is more leveraged and to go pre-sell it, and deliver it in as near real time as possible. So 30-ish days in, you've gone and you pre-sold a handful of people into now a group program. And that the number of people that are now bought into this program is over 40K in revenue. How many clients is that?
I have 11 who are in the program now. But I'm charging a premium now. But when I sold like the first 3 out of the gate, I charged way too low. And so like I sold 3 or 4 out of the gate and I was like, why did I ask for that amount? And so that doesn't tell the actual price point. It lowers my average. So
got it. So
yeah,
we understand that. So then, but how many total clients are now in the beta?
11. There's 11 total now.
And so, and completely kind of like done with you. And just recently, and you're probably a couple in now, like you started, you're in active delivery. So can you quickly share for some folks that are like, okay, like you just sold, like you designed this thing, you sold it without it being really done. And now you're delivering it. Can you kind of take some people through how that came to be and how that's worked for you?
Yeah, it's interesting for me to see people struggling with this selling it before you create it model, right? Like if you're a web design agency, you don't pre-build a website, then go out and see who wants to buy your newly designed website, right? Like you sell it first and then you build it. And so I was like, it's not really any different. You're selling the outcomes. It's a great
analogy, by the way.
Thank you. You're selling the outcomes that you know you can create because you're an expert. And because you've taken others through that journey, presumably you've worked with clients, you know you can trigger those insights, you know you can get those outcomes. And if you're a good business person, an ethical business person, you know you'll stop at nothing to make sure these people get those outcomes. So for me, it was really not that big of a deal to sell kind of a future state program. So I did that, and I got literally zero pushback. There wasn't a single person that I spoke to who said yes or no, who was like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me you don't have these webinars sitting in a vault somewhere that you'll share? So the sales stuff, none of that was a challenge in terms of selling this thing that I hadn't created. And then what I did is, for me anyway, my signature service, my beta program is in fact my big ticket consulting program. It is exactly the same, only what I was doing with my one-to-one, I would go and deliver the same slide deck to a client. And what I realized is they're getting, let's say, 15 hours of time with me, but 14 and a half of those hours are pre-scripted. There's nothing custom about what I was doing, right? Like if you're building websites, you're building them from templates, you're using Thrive, using whatever you're using, like you're really not, I kind of realized I wasn't really doing as much custom as I thought I was. And so I took all of the content that I used to spend hours and hours and hours just delivering that had already been pre-created. And that's all been turned into training and action items and templates for my clients to go through. And then instead of spending 15 hours just regurgitating slides I wrote a year ago, I spend that time now giving them direct feedback on what they're working on, coaching them, being in the community, answering their questions. They're moving way faster than my one-to-one clients. Like they're killing them. It's amazing to see the impact this work has when you spend the time on the stuff that actually creates the insights for your client, and not on the things that have the perception of custom and one-to-one. So yeah, being in delivery now, people are going through the process. They're consuming the training. They are submitting questions. They're active in my discussion group. and they're showing up on coaching calls and they're helping each other. So it's not just my voice, it's 11 people. Well, it's 17 people, because some of them are bringing colleagues, which for me is totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you quickly talk to, I know, and you might have not dealt with this yet, but I would imagine you have. We get a lot of folks that are like, oh, well, my client would never want to go through it with other clients. Like, have you experienced that at all? Or
not at all.
Have you experienced any challenge with selling clients into something where they knew other clients would be there too?
No, I haven't, because I just don't consider that a challenge.
Yeah.
My background is in sales. Like, I've been selling sponsorship, and then I've been selling high ticket stuff through my own program. So if I'm going in with a barrier to the sale on behalf of my client, you're already in trouble. So I don't take any of those assumptions when I go into a call. So I haven't had anyone push back and say, wait a minute, these are group calls. That people have asked for clarification, and my response is always, yeah, there's some group training, there's some group coaching, there's some one-on-one stuff, there's whatever we need to get you the outcome you need. Like, you're not just going to get 2 calls because we said you get 2 calls, and 3 coaching calls because we said you get them. What you're going to get are these outcomes. And so if you're struggling with the valuation module and I have to spend a whole day on a call with you, I will, which is why you can feel confident that the training is excellent, because I don't want to spend a whole day trying to sort through bad training. It has to be good, because I don't want to spend that kind of time. And I just offer it like it's a solution, right? Like, of course you're going to get my eyes on everything, but you're also going to get 300 years of experience once we have 30 people in the program. If everyone has 10 years sponsorship experience, it's better.
Yeah.
And so I just present it as an advantage. I haven't had anyone yet push back, even though there are in fact 2 competitors in the program right now. And they're loving it.
That's cool.
So it's unexpected. I didn't know they were competitors until they got into the program, but anyway.
Talk to me a little bit about, and obviously one of the key things that for our clients that kind of helps them unlock how this program is going to flow and be delivered, et cetera, is the thing we call signature service. Like, can you talk to, just like high level, how has kind of taking your brain and putting it through that helped in, I guess, clarity or anything else that it's kind of helped with?
Yeah. So the signature service process, which happens pretty early in the program, right, is like break what you're doing down into, you give a couple of options, but 9 steps is kind of the most common. Break it into 9 steps under kind of 3 broad categories. And then, at least in my case, it's linear. Maybe it's meant to be linear, but it definitely became
doesn't
linear.
Have to be, but can, yeah.
Right. So here's the first thing that my clients have to do in order to go from this place of struggling to sell sponsorship to building multi-year partnerships. Like, that's the change I want to make for these people. So to chart the 9 steps and then bring it to Ryan, the signature service guru, he kept saying to me, what can you remove without preventing that outcome? Like, what else can you take away from the signature service that you get to the point where you have the least you need to deliver that outcome? And so going through this process to really think about, like, what is it that that I need to deliver and transfer to people to get them the outcome they want was fascinating. And so you might remember very early on, I still had pitches for my one-to-one service. I hadn't started selling my group program yet. So I actually just pitched the signature service, and it was a $65,000 client. So 65 grand, I just walk them through the signature service. I'm like, that's what I do for you. But I was pitching it like a one-to-one. Like, I'm just going to come in and do these 9 things. And they were like, sign me up. They were in, like, they saw it was the easiest big ticket sale I'd made maybe ever. And it was using this thing that was actually designed for like a mid price offering, or at least in my case.
Yeah.
And so I was blown away.
It's designed it is there to sell anything. That's the thing. It's like your process, how much you charge for your process has a lot to do with the delivery and the the access and
Yeah.
the level of result.
Well, I think Ryan was saying he uses a signature service for a do-it-yourself course. He does it for his kind of mid-level group coaching, and then it's a done-for-you offer.
Yep.
And so I don't like the done-for-you stuff, and so I actually turned that client down in favor of my my group program.
I love it.
Based on a conversation that we had in the group coaching, which is like, well, like, what do I really want? It really comes down to what my vision is. Do I want to keep bringing in good money doing work I don't like? Or am I going to commit to this new vision that I have and move forward? And for me, I made the choice that I actually wasn't going to work with these one-to-one clients at all. But yeah, so the signature service process is fascinating because you have to go through this process where you think this thing that only I can do, that no one else can do, that requires me to be present for every step. All of those assumptions are incorrect. And it's a signature service process that shows you, no, that's not true. You actually, maybe I need to be present for some of it, but now I see the light. I'm in the process of hiring a full-time virtual assistant. And right now I'm just trying to pack my calendar with enough sales calls to justify hiring a sales rep. So I can see a quarter down the road where I'm going to be pulling myself out of the delivery of the least attractive parts of my work right now.
Yeah. So kind of like to wrap it up. And first of all, like just acknowledge you, like you have implemented, right? Like the people that implement obviously end up with results like you.
If you're not going to implement, don't just save your money, stay home. I don't want to say we don't want you in the group, but like, I want to hang out with other implementers. Like I'm active in the group. I want people to challenge me, people like Nia to kick me around if I'm not doing what I say. You got to be ready to implement. You have to want it. I mean, no one can want it more than you if it's your business.
So if I heard correctly, like kind of the original concern for you or fear for you when joining was like, is this going to work for my business since I've tried so many things?
Yeah.
What would you say? What would you say to people that are saying that right now?
Well, I think the reality is that what I came to realize is that if I'm right, it's not proof that I shouldn't join Alt Agency. It's proof that I shouldn't be running this business anymore. If that's the case, then it's an argument that I actually picked the wrong business. Every business is solvable. Every business is fixable. So long as the person behind the business is ready to do the work, right? Your business is not going to grow past your ability, your own ability to expand. And so in many ways, for me, coming to terms with the fact that if I admit my business can't be grown in the way that I think it should, then that means all those others who have done it in a similar business are actually just better than me. And the problem is me, because there are plenty of scaled sponsorship consulting practices, just like there's plenty of scaled agencies. So the issue was not my business, and the issue was not your business, if that's what you're thinking. The issue, we say #tough love in Alt Agency. The issue is with you. You got to challenge yourself and push past your comfort zone.
I love it. And so what would you say to someone then who's on the fence of joining? Like they're right there. They're emailing back and forth with questions.
They're bailing last minute on calls. I think the reality is this: if you went through the webinars and the training that you provided, and you like what you're hearing on the Alt Agency or Greg's YouTube channel, like if you like what you're hearing, Alt Agency is that times 10,000. It's like it is that exponentially more. Everything you're hearing through those channels is what you get. And so if you liked what you're hearing enough to book a call, you should sign up. And in the grand scheme of things, like when we think about how much money we spend on our businesses and what we invest, like 42 flights, that's a lot of cash. So to even bat an eye at the, it's not like you're not giving it away, but it's like in the scheme of things that you invest in from your business. For me anyway, this is certainly true for me. I pushed back on the price a little because I didn't think that I was worth investing at that level in, right? But then I'll go spend that much money or more on a lawyer who's going to proofread a contract and add a couple of commas, right? Like, so I think that a lot comes back to mindset. So if you liked what you saw, liked what you heard enough to get on a call, this is for you and you should sign up. You're missing out if you don't.
I love it. Oh, A, I appreciate that. And two, we appreciate you. Obviously we're stoked to have you up level to Academy. And for anyone listening, like this, obviously we love the fact that Chris just said all those things, but, and I've shared this with other clients too. Like, we can tell, like, you don't need to be on every one of our calls. Like, I mean, we have multiple calls a week that you have access to throughout our experience. But like, for the most part, Chris has been on every single call, absorbing, listening.
Yeah.
He didn't have a question, but then he had a question. And like, again, while I don't think it's necessary that you need to be on every single one, I mean, we've had clients that have gone through and launched their pilot program without ever attending a single call. I would say that's typically an exception, but like, it's just, you see the amount of work that you've put in and applied to the process. Cause you went through and we're like, wow, how'd you get through so fast? And it's like,
I flew through it.
yeah. Like you cranked through it. And we're definitely seeing other people kind of go through at that pace too. So definitely need to acknowledge. There
were a handful of people who I joined after. Seth, I'm looking at you. And then I blew past them, right? Like, I lapped them. It was like that scene in Captain America, like, on your left, as I'm blowing past these people. And they're like, what the hell? How was this guy? Like, they would message me and be like, when did you join the program? And I tell them, and they're like, it's like a week after me or something. And so, I wanted it. And I put in the effort, and it was easily the best investment I made in my business. I can't think of something else that has paid off in this way. Like, just the pre-selling of the signature service was enough to let me step away from one-to-one, so that instead I could focus on building out this awesome program. And I have 8 sales calls this week, and a bunch ended up on my calendar coming in a couple of weeks. Like, it's exactly what you said it would be. And it was just as challenging as you promised it would be. So don't join lightly, but man, if you pass up this opportunity, and then later on you join, you'll kick yourself for skipping out on a year of progress.
Super appreciate that, and super pumped for you and all the success you've already had. Well deserved. You've worked for it. So obviously kudos to all of the application you've put towards this. So thank you so much for spending your time with us and kind of sharing your story so far. Hopefully nudge a few more folks that are watching, over the fence, so they can maybe blow by you at some point.
Yeah, I love it. On your left. When you join, make sure you give me a shout out in Facebook and let me know, so I can get on you and make sure you're doing the work.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it, and talk to you soon.
Cool. Sounds good.